Kyriakides, welcome. We've missed some spectacular speeches, but yours is going to be the best.
Yeah? Excuse me. We have to go to the vote.
Always the last one is always the best. The Turkish invasion and occupation of Cyprus, a case study in unethical behavior. Claire.
Well, thank you very much for the invitation. What is it that they say? Better late than very late. So forgive me for my 7:30 p.m. GMT. Can you hear me? Well, first of all, can I thank Lobby for Cyprus for the invitation to address you this evening. It's become customary on occasions such as this for me to make two declarations at the outset. Firstly, as an independent academic lawyer and lecturer, I'm obliged to say that I'm sympathetic with the views of Lobby for Cyprus, but I'm not a member of the organisation. And the second thing I must do as an academic is make a declaration of interest. Both of my late grandfathers hailed from villages in the occupied areas of Cyprus. Now, when I was invited to give a very brief 30-minute lecture here this evening, I was stopped in my tracks. What more is there to say about the Turkish invasion and occupation of Cyprus? So many books and articles have been written on the subject. And yet, when the invitation reached me by email, I was in the process of writing a lecture for some master students of mine on the subject of professional ethics and ethical values. And the thought came to me, well, how much has been said about the ethics of 1974 and the ethics of the Cyprus question today? And my argument, ladies and gentlemen, is that ethics constitute the missing ingredients in the Cyprus question. We know about the law, important and crucial though it is, but the law on its own is not enough. I'm reminded of something that a great American judge once said, Earl Warren: law floats on a sea of ethics. So when we talk about law, at least in the Western European liberal tradition, we are talking about law in tandem with ethics. Now, let me just move on to my central argument. We lawyers are obliged to be, and I'm a non-practicing solicitor, we are obliged to be persons of the utmost integrity, probity, and trustworthiness. Regrettably, not all lawyers fall into that category, and we have some bad apples in our barrel. But that is what the law and our professional guidebook and our personal honour requires us to have. Integrity, probity, and trustworthiness. Were those three ingredients present in Cyprus in 1974? Kyriakides, were you there in 1974? Was there any integrity, probity, or trustworthiness on display?
No, not at all.
It's a leading question, but that's my theme. In particular, the three guaranteeing powers back then, regrettably, were guilty, in my view, of conducting themselves unethically. And regrettably, this ethical vacuum in Cyprus that we had in 1974 perpetuates to today. And I'll come to today at the end of my talk. But we have, as I see it, a negotiation process in Cyprus which is devoid of ethics. It's clinical, it's crude, it's primarily focused on politics and the use of law to underpin politics, whereas it should be a process that is based on law, legal principles, and ethical values. I hope you can catch my train of thought, and if you don't agree with it in the question and answer session, you're welcome to challenge my analysis, because that's what we do in democracy. We advance arguments and we fight with our words, not with guns. At this point, I've already thanked Lobby for Cyprus. Can I also thank Theatrodechnis for hosting this evening's event? And I pay tribute to the theatre for enriching the cultural life of our great city here in London. I noticed that a few weeks ago, Theatro Technis put on a performance of the Phoenician Women by Euripides, Euripides as we'd say in English. Now this is a play which focuses on the hardship endured by people who find themselves caught up in warfare and are driven from their homes, which often happens in warfare. Now, although the play was written by Euripides 2,500 years ago, it confirms that the suffering of innocent people in warfare is nothing new. Indeed, the play contains a number of stunning observations which chime with the experiences of those such as Kyriakides, who suffered during those dark days 36 years ago. In one early scene of the play, Jocasta, I don't know, that's the English transliteration, asks, "What means exile from one's country?" And Kyriakides has effectively been exiled, hasn't he, from his country. "Is it a great evil?" And in reply, Polynikis affirms that it is the greatest of evils, and it is harder to bear than to tell. And to make matters worse in the play, each exiled person, it is said, must bear, and I like this, the follies of his rulers. Now, upon hearing this, Jocasta comments that hope, they say, is the food of the exile. And Kyriakides and his fellow refugees have been nourishing themselves on that food, hope, for the past 36 years. Now, in the play, this elicits a pained response from Polynikis. I hope I pronounced that correctly. "I, hope that looks so fair, but she is ever in the future." And a little later in the play, Polynikis adds that the words of truth are simple, but the words of injustice, being rotten in themselves, require clever treatment. To which another character in the play comes in, Edelglis, and he offers a profound thought. "If all were at one in their ideas of honour and wisdom, there would have been no strife to make men disagree. But as it is, fairness and equality have no existence in this world beyond the name. There is really no such thing as fairness and equality." That was 2,500 years ago. Fairness and equality are built into our law today. The problem is in Cyprus, the law hasn't been translated into practice, at least in respect of the occupied areas. Now that observation from the Phoenician women encapsulates my overarching argument in this paper. In 1974, Cyprus was invaded, de facto partition, and subjected to an injustice which was caused, at least in part, by a lack of honour, wisdom, fairness, and equality. In short, ethics were absent. Now, I mentioned that ethics overhangs, or rather underpins, the law. And it's not just me saying this. This is something that is reflected in the wording of the European Union Treaty, which is the governing legal instrument in the European Union. And I've circulated around the room a document which encapsulates and reflects some of these provisions. You can look at it in your own time. But let me just highlight the wording of the European Union Treaty in the preamble. The member states of the European Union, which include the UK, Greece, the Republic of Cyprus, Germany, Austria, the Netherlands, and various other countries, draw inspiration from the cultural, religious, and humanist inheritance of Europe, from which have developed the universal values of the inviolable and inalienable rights of the human person, including Kyriakides and the refugees.